This kind of is a segue to the second part of the podcast where I'd like to take you. I mean, it's an honor to have you on board, and I want to give you the opportunity to say all the good things that you can about PMI, because it's important to get the message out there and let people know that they're not alone. One of my favorite quotes is, "We read to know that we're not alone." One listens to podcasts or does whatever, participates in workshops or seminars for the same reason. And there's lots of good things happening out there, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. What PMI has done is sensational. And maybe a way to drive this a little bit home, I mentioned to you when I sent you some of the suggestions of questions I would ask you. I told you that the tenure or the tone of this podcast is to be what I like to call constructively critical. I'm a big fan of AI. I don't think it's a question whether it's here to stay, but I'm as a PM Cowboy, I'm the first one to say BS if I smell it. And I think there's a lot of hype out there. I think a lot of people are unsettled and confused. Should I buy in? Should I not buy in? I have a number of clients that come to me and say, Mark, these are like small to medium-sized companies, and they'll say, Mark, what's your advice? You know, they ask me during the coffee break, off the record, should we buy this? Should we do that? Should we train this? Should we commit to this LLM? Should we be doing vibe coding? Should we be working with agents? And I always come back to this, the core principles is, do you even know what you want? I call it the Spice Girl principle. Tell me what you really, really want. And the problem is, you know, that takes some time. It takes some iteration to actually say, where does it even make sense to apply? Just like you said, what type of AI are we looking for? What would be the application? What's the cost of implementing it? Is it in line with our principles? Does it match our business model? All these questions are important. And actually, I often catch myself with some clients. Like I said, I'm a big fan of AI, but there's some clients where I said, you know what, you guys just don't have an idea of what use cases you want to use it for. And they said, yeah, but if we don't move now, aren't we going to miss out? And I said, you know what, considering your operational budget and your other priorities, this is what I've actually recommended this to some of my clients. It says, you know, sit it out. Keep people involved. You should have a team that's committed to AI. You know, I also tell them they should get their certification. It'll warm them up. But I said, you know what? You're not going to miss out. You don't have the dilemma that the first movers are going to win here. In fact, I think a lot of the first movers are going to burn their fingers. And I think actually second movers, once there's, you know, valid use cases and procedures on how to get what you're actually going for, will actually reap the benefits of some of the disastrous results. And that brings me to this one famous paper that was written by MIT. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's already old. But this report that was done that said, I think that back then they said it was 500 billion. I think it's up to 700 billion or 800 billion right now that has been invested in the global market. I'm sure somebody invented that number, but it's fairly accurate, right? And then they came up with a statistic that said only 5% of those companies that have invested that substantial amount of money have reported a return of investment, okay? Now, I think one of the battle cries of PMO and project management and the new vim and vigor of project management is don't focus just on cost, but focus on value. Value-driven, value focus is important. And then, you know, everybody's shocked when I say only 5% of 800 million claim to have a return of investment. That's a big question. I'd love to hear what you have to say to that. But I guess the conclusion would be, sorry for talking so long, I'm trying to set up the question. I think we got a lot of gaslighting feedback, like, it's because you guys don't know what the heck you're doing. And I guess there's a couple questions tied into this long-winded intro here. I would probably say that if the statement is legitimate that people are doing it wrong, I think CPMAI is exactly the way to tie in there and say, okay, do we even know what we're doing? Is there a framework? You know, by the way, the framework's not going to guarantee success, but it should increase the probability of success. That's one thing I would say. I'd love to hear what you think about that. What's your take on this MIT, and not just MIT? There's all sorts of little short Instagrams out there where people are saying, I don't know what it's every day is Ford has reneged on its AI, Amazon has reneged on its AI, everybody's reneging on their because it's. What's your take on this whole ROI viability and the fact that people are supposedly doing it wrong?
Yeah, that is a very, very intricate, long question. So I'll kind of
break it down,
yeah.
whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.